Hello, hi, a very happy good evening. So this is Krishna Ma'am and we're talking about the story of life on earth, and that's biology. So thank you for joining my new beginning series. So today we're going to talk about a very small topic, that is the mechanism of hormone receptor complex. So before we go to the mechanism of hormone receptor complex, we still have three endocrine glands to finish. So namely the adrenal, the pancreas and the gonads. So after which we'll talk about the mechanism of hormone receptor complex. So this is almost, you can say, the last lecture of human physiology. So from tomorrow I would like to start plant physiology, so we are not wasting time. So from Monday I will do class 11 and class 12 alternatively, but tomorrow we are beginning with plant physiology, so please do join me tomorrow at 5:15 p.m. as well. Okay, so now let's move forward. So before we move forward, so it's a humble request, so please join the Pathfinder course. So it is a complete English medium course where you get physics, chemistry, biology in complete English medium. You get proper class 11 and class 12 basics. So your sheets, your questions are also discussed in this. So you have unit test, you have chapter test, you have full syllabus test, etc. So the entire package of this course is 35,000, but I can give you an off of 10,000 if you use the coupon code KR10. So this gives you an off of 3,500. So you just have to pay 31,500 for this entire course. So make sure you join with me at the earliest, because the course is already begin from 15th of November. So we are talking about biological classification in biology, so please join as quickly as possible. So you have to purchase the courses from your eCareerPoint app, so you can purchase it from there. Right, so we were talking about endocrine glands, so giving you a brief description about endocrine glands. So the endocrine glands are ductless glands and their secretions are called as hormones. So these hormones are basically your non-nutrient chemical substances which act as intercellular messengers, and they're always found in trace amounts. Then we went on to talk about the human endocrine glands. So we started off with your hypothalamus. So we started off with your hypothalamus. Then you have the master endocrine gland, that is the pituitary gland. Then number 3 you have the pineal gland. So number 4 you have the thymus. So you have the thyroid. Number 6 parathyroid. So number 7 you have the adrenal gland. So number 8 we have the pancreas. And number 9 we have gonads. So gonads include your testes as well as your ovary. So these are the 9 endocrine glands in humans. So we spoke about the 6, so the last 3 is remaining. So we are yet to talk about these 3. So talking about your hypothalamus, I hope you remember. So hypothalamus is the part of your forebrain or your diencephalon. So hypothalamus has cells that is known as neurosecretory cells, which secretes the hypothalamic hormone. So your hypothalamus can secrete 2 types of hormone. One is stimulating hormone, the other one is inhibiting hormone. The stimulating hormone is known as GnRH. Example, that is gonadotropin releasing hormone, which acts on the master endocrine gland, that is the pituitary gland, and which stimulates the production of the gonadotropins, that is your FSH and your LH. So talking about the inhibiting hormone, so your inhibiting hormone includes your somatostatin, so which acts again on your master pituitary gland, and it inhibits the production of your growth hormone. So that is about hypothalamus. So then we spoke about pineal gland. So pineal gland has only one hormone, so that is known as melatonin. So it has a lot of functions. So your melatonin, your pineal gland is also present in the dorsal portion of your forebrain. That is also a portion of the diencephalon. So the pineal gland has only one hormone, that is melatonin. So this melatonin has a wide variety of function. So it helps in the 24-hour cycle of your body. So it helps in pigmentation, it helps in metabolism, it helps in menstrual cycle, and it also plays a role in the defense mechanism of the body. So then we started talking about the thymus. So the thymus produces only one type of hormone again. So that is thymosins. So these thymosins are responsible for the maturation of the T lymphocytes. The main function of the T lymphocytes is to act upon the B lymphocytes and to make it produce more hormone. So that is the function of thymus. Then talking about the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland is present, has two lobes, right? So we have a pair of thyroid glands, so you can say it is present in the form of a lobe, and the two thyroid glands are connected by a thin flap of connective tissue, that is isthmus. Fine. So next we have the parathyroid. So what are the hormones of the thyroid gland? So the thyroid gland is made up of follicles, and it is made up of stromal cells, and this follicles enclose a cavity. So your thyroid gland produces two hormones, that is T3 and T4, triiodothyronine and tetraiodothyronine or thyroxine. And iodine is very important for the production of your thyroid hormones, and your thyroid hormones have a very significant role. They help in the basal metabolism formation. So they also help in supporting the RBC formation. I hope you're able to recollect yesterday's lecture. So apart from these two hormones, your hypo and hyper secretion of thyroid glands also leads to a variety of diseases. So we spoke about your first is cranitism. So I also mentioned about Hashimoto's disease. Then we have the Graves' disease and the exophthalmic goiter. So I would like you to remember all these diseases. So apart from T3 and T4, your thyroid also has other hormone that is known as thyrocalcitonin. So this thyrocalcitonin, it reduces the blood calcium levels, which is very opposite to the parathyroid hormone. So parathyroid is present as a pair in each of the lobes. So totally there are 4 parathyroid glands, and it produces only one hormone, that is the parathyroid hormone, and this increases the blood calcium level. So whereas thyrocalcitonin decreases the blood calcium level. Fine. So now talking about the master endocrine gland, that is the pituitary gland. Your pituitary gland is also known as hypophysis. So your pituitary gland is divided into 2 segments. One is anterior, the other one is posterior. So the anterior pituitary is known as adenohypophysis, and your posterior pituitary is known as neurohypophysis. So your adenohypophysis, that is the anterior pituitary itself, is divided into 2 segments. So what are the 2 segments of adenohypophysis? So we have pars distalis and pars intermedia. So pars distalis produces 6 varieties of hormones. The first one being the growth hormone. So then you have the prolactin. So you have the thyroid stimulating hormone, so adrenocorticotropic hormone. So then you have the luteinizing hormone, then you have the follicle stimulating hormone. So we have these 6 hormones produced by pars distalis portion of the adenohypophysis. So pars intermedia of the adenohypophysis produces only one hormone, that is known as your melanocyte stimulating hormone. Fine. So your GH is the growth hormone that helps in growth. So hypersecretion causes gigantism and less secretion causes dwarfism. So there's also another condition, so that is your acromegaly, that is seen in adults when you have more condition or more production of growth hormone. So the next one is prolactin. So prolactin has 2 roles. So one is the development of mammary glands, and it also helps in the secretion of milk in the mammary glands. So the third hormone is thyroid stimulating hormone. So this acts on the thyroid gland to stimulate the T3 and the T4. So adrenocorticotropic hormone, so it acts on the adrenal gland, which is present on the anterior portion of your kidney like this, especially the cortex region of the adrenal glands, which today we'll be talking, to secrete the hormones of the cortex, so that is ACTH. So talking about the LH and FSH, so these are known as gonadotropins. So they have different functions in male as well as in female. So your LH helps in or acts on the Leydig cells in male and produces a group of hormones known as androgens, and one such hormone is known as testosterone. Right. So now your testosterone plus the follicle stimulating hormone, that is the FSH, it actually stimulates or regulates the process of spermatogenesis. Fine. So coming to this side, so in females, how does it work? So LH develops in the helps in the maturation of the ovarian follicles. FSH helps in the development of the ovarian follicles. So with this, we're done with all the 6 hormones of the pars distalis. So talking about the hormone of your pars intermedia, that is MSH, which is your melanocyte stimulating hormone. So this to some extent also plays a role in your pigmentation. So now talking about the posterior pituitary. So the posterior pituitary is known as neurohypophysis. So this neurohypophysis, so this does not produce any hormones, but it just stores and secretes two hormones which are actually produced by the hypothalamus. So the two hormones are oxytocin, then you have vasopressin or ADH. So ADH stands for antidiuretic hormone. So your oxytocin has two functions. So it helps in the contraction of the smooth muscles of your myometrium of the uterus at the time of child delivery, and it also helps in the ejection of milk from the mammary glands. So the next one is vasopressin or ADH. So ADH is antidiuretic hormone. So when you do not have your ADH, you have more amount of water released through your urine. So basically your ADH or your vasopressin helps in the conditional reabsorption of sodium and water from the distal convoluted tubule. Alright. So apart from that, when you do not have the proper secretion of ADH and vasopressin, so that leads to a condition known as diabetes insipidus. Alright. So these are about the hormones. So today we move to the remaining three glands and their hormones. So first one is adrenal gland. So the adrenal gland is present in the posterior region of your, in the anterior region of your kidney. So this is the kidney. So I hope you remember the structure of the kidney. And this is the hilum, if you remember. So this is my adrenal gland. So the adrenal gland is divided into two parts. So one is the cortex portion, that is the outer portion. The other one is the medullary portion. So this is called as adrenal cortex. This is called as adrenal medulla. So adrenal medulla produces a group of hormones known as catecholamines. So these catecholamines include your adrenaline or epinephrine, right? The other one is noradrenaline or norepinephrine. So these catecholamines are called as the flight or flight hormones. So when you are anxious, when you are tensed, when you are scared, so these hormones are secreted. So they basically increase your heartbeat. So that is one main function, they increase your heartbeat. So this is about the hormones of your adrenal medulla. Now talking about the hormones of your adrenal cortex. So the hormones of the adrenal cortex are known as corticoids. So they are collectively called as corticoids, and this corticoids is of two types. So one is glucocorticoid. So when it is involved in the regulation of glucose metabolism, it is glucocorticoid, and when it is involved in the regulation of mineral metabolism, so this is known as mineralocorticoid. So one important glucocorticoid is known as cortisol, and one important mineralocorticoid is known as aldosterone. Fine. So I hope the hormones of the adrenaline are not tough either. So now let's move forward and talk about the functions of the adrenal cortex. So the adrenal cortex has three layers from the inner to the outside. So you have zona reticularis, zona fasciculata, and zona glomerulosa. So these are the three layers of your adrenal cortex. So you can remember it as GFR. Glomerulosa, fasciculata, reticulata. So this is the outermost, this is the inner, and this is the middle one, right? So it secretes a group of hormones known as corticoids. So we have a corticoid which is involved in glucose metabolism, that is glucocorticoid. The most important glucocorticoid is known as your cortisol, right? So corticoids, which regulate the balance of water and electrolytes, are known as mineralocorticoids, and the most important mineralocorticoid is aldosterone. So this is the function. So now we talk about the functions of the corticoids as such. So the glucocorticoids stimulate gluconeogenesis. So gluco is glucose molecules, neo is new, and genesis is formation. So formation of new glucose molecules is gluconeogenesis, and it helps in lipolysis. So lysis means breakdown. So it helps in the breakdown of lipids, and proteolysis, it also helps in the breakdown of proteins. So that is the primary function of your glucocorticoid. It also inhibits the cellular uptake and utilization of amino acids. So cortisol, the most important glucocorticoid, so it helps in maintaining the cardiovascular system plus the kidney functions. So then they also produce anti-inflammatory reactions and suppress the immune system, and they also stimulate the RBC. So when you have a graft rejection, so when you have a donor, when you have a transplantation, so sometimes it suppresses the immune reaction, right? So aldosterone acts mainly on the renal tubules and stimulate the reabsorption of water and Na+. So it also helps in the excretion of K+ and phosphate ion. So it also secretes a group of hormones known as androgenic hormones, androgenic steroids secreted, which plays a role in the growth of axial hair, pubic hair, and the facial hair, right? So with this we are done with the adrenal glands. So now let's talk about the pancreas. So you know where the pancreas is located. So it is sandwiched between the stomach and the intestine. So this pancreas is a heterocline gland. So it can act both as your endocrine as well as your exocrine gland, right? So the exocrine portion of the pancreas produces pancreatic juice. Now what about the endocrine portion? So endocrine portion of the pancreas has a group of cells known as islets of Langerhans. So this islets of Langerhans has two types of cells. So one is alpha cell and one is beta cell. So alpha cell secretes a hormone that is known as glucagon. Beta cell secretes a hormone that is known as insulin. Fine. So these are the two hormones. So this increases the blood sugar level. And this decreases the blood sugar level. So these two also works in opposite directions. So one increases, one regulates high blood sugar levels, and the other decreases. Right? So now how does insulin work? So actually insulin helps in the conversion of, insulin has to reduce the blood glucose level, right? So it will convert the existing glucose into glycogen. Then it will transport it to the liver and the muscles for storage. So this is how your insulin hormone works. So the last part of this is the gonads, the last gland. So first we are going to talk about testis. So testis is a pair and is a primary sex organ in male, but the testis is located much below the abdominal cavity because it is present in a sac known as scrotal sac for the process of spermatogenesis. It is also an endocrine gland. So the testis is composed of seminiferous tubules and stromal and interstitial tissue. So you have a particular type of cells in your testis known as Leydig cells. So we know it is acting in coordination with your LH. So then it produces testosterone. So what is the function of testosterone? It helps in the development, maturation, and the functional of male accessory sex organs. So it stimulates the muscular growth of facial axillary hair, axial hair, aggressiveness, because you know that person is a male. So sometimes from the voice you found out that's a male, right? So that aggressiveness and low pitch. So they also stimulate the role of spermatogenesis. They influence the male sexual behavior. So they also produce anabolic effects on proteins and carbohydrates. If you remember anabolic steroids we read in adrenal gland, so that comes here. So the next one is the ovary. So this is your testis and this is your ovary. So this is your testis, this is your ovary. So moving further, so we are talking about the ovary. So the ovaries are a pair and they are also located in the lower abdominal cavity. So this is in female. So they are the primary sex organ and they each ovary releases, so we have a pair. So each ovary releases one pair of ovum during each menstrual cycle. So they produces two group of hormone, that is estrogen and progesterone. So progesterone, as we know, is a pregnancy hormone. So the ovary has ovarian follicles and stromal tissues. The estrogen is synthesized by the growing ovarian follicles. So after ovulation, the ruptured follicles becomes corpus luteum, which secretes progesterone. So this is also in sync with your class 12 chapter, that is human reproduction, which you have to remember. So what is the function of ovarian hormone? Stimulates the growth of secondary sexual characters in female, development of the ovarian follicles, so mainly based on the sex characters, development of mammary glands. It regulates the female sexual behavior, it supports pregnancy, it helps in the formation of milk. So all these are the functions of your ovary, right? So the last part of today's class is the hormones. Okay, so we still have one more part before we go to the mechanism of hormone receptor complex. So apart from your endocrine glands, so the normal glands like the heart, kidney also secretes hormone. So when you have high blood pressure in your heart, so the atria of the heart secretes a hormone known as ANF, right? So this is a vasoconstrictor, right? So I hope you remember this, we read in the excretory system. So then you have JGA cells, which produces a hormone known as erythropoietin, which is important for the production of red blood cells. Now, what are the hormones of the gastrointestinal tract? So this produces four hormones, gastrin, secretin, CCK, and the last one is GIP. So CCK stands for cholecystokinin, right? So your gastrin acts on the gastric gland and it helps in the secretion of HCl and pepsinogen in the stomach. So secretin acts on the endocrine region of the pancreas, so it produces the pancreatic juice. So it also helps in the secretion of your water and bicarbonate ions. So cholecystokinin has two functions. It acts on the pancreas as well as the gallbladder. So gallbladder has bile, so it will stimulate the secretion of bile. So pancreas, it produces pancreatic juice, right? So GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide. So this inhibits the secretion of gastrin. Fine. So with this we are done. So we also have certain tissues known as growth factors, which also function as hormone. So before we go to the types of, before we go to the mechanism of hormone receptor complex, let's talk about the types of hormones. So we have 9 endocrine glands, plus we have other organs also releasing hormones. Now can we classify the hormones? So the first way to classify hormones is based on their structure. So do they have a peptide group? So they are called as peptide hormones. So are they made of amino acids? They are peptide hormones. Then steroids, if they have a steroidal ring. If they are made up of iodine, so it is iodothyronins, and if they are from the amino acid derivatives, so they are amino acid derivatives. So peptide hormone includes your insulin, so the hormones of the pancreas, so hormones of the pituitary gland, hormones of the hypothalamic hormones. You also have the thymosins, which are also peptide hormones. So steroid hormones include your cortisol, testosterone, estrogen and progesterone. So iodothyronins, which has your iodine, that is your T3 and your T5. So amino acid derivative includes your epinephrine. So now what is this mechanism of hormone action? For example, so you have your master endocrine gland, right? So your master endocrine gland produces gonadotropins, that is FSH and LH, so which acts on the gonads of the respective organ, right? Yes ma'am, a very happy good evening. So thank you so much for joining my lecture today. So please do like, share and subscribe. Right, so it has to go to the gonadal region. So even if it reaches the gonadal region, who will receive this hormone? Someone has to be there, right? So if I am going to China, so someone has to be there to pick me up at the airport, because I don't know the country and I don't know Chinese, right? So much in the same way, so if you can see, FSH is a gonadotropin and it is coming from the master endocrine gland, that is the pituitary gland, right? So once it reaches the ovary, so you have someone to welcome the hormone. So that is known as a receptor. The moment it comes, the hormone and the receptor will bind to each other, that is the hormone receptor complex. So once it binds, there is a change in the membrane permeability, which induces the secondary messengers. So it calls upon the secondary messengers, others in the family. Say for example, your dad's friend is coming, your dad will receive the friend. and then he will introduce to everyone in the house, right? So now it will activate secondary messengers like your cyclic AMP or your calcium. Now this will activate the biochemical response, and whatever function FSH has to do, it will do. So that is the main role of your hormone receptor complex. So since you have the receptor on the membrane, so these are known as membrane receptors. So all your protein or the peptide hormones have membrane receptors. They have the receptor on the membrane, right? So now talking about the other type. So what about steroid hormones? So when I say steroid hormones like estrogen, so this estrogen does not have a receptor in the membrane, but it has a receptor inside the nucleus. Say for example, your dad's assistant is coming to your home, so every day you will not go and welcome him, right? So he knows your dad's office, he will directly walk into your dad's office. So all the steroid hormones have nuclear receptors. Once they bind, they cause the necessary changes inside the nucleus. So this is the mechanism of hormone receptor complex. So I hope you have understood. So this chapter is completed. So I have completed the entire human physiology, starting from digestion till chemical coordination and integration. So I hope you have understood. So now I am looking forward for a lot of questions. So please do ask me. And tomorrow we are beginning with human physiology. So before that, once again a reminder for Pathfinder course. So please join me for this course ASAP, because the course is already begun. So then I will not be able to help you. So though the course is for a price amount of 35,000, I can give you a 10% off of 3,500. So you just have to pay 31,500. So please join as quickly as possible. So if you genuinely liked my way of teaching, so please do like, share and subscribe. So thank you so much. This is me signing off. So tomorrow at 5:15, so we are starting with plant physiology. So until then, stay tuned and take care. Bye.